Come to a comfortable standing posture. You can have your feet hips distance apart. Bring your hands to heart center. Close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths, connecting with your body. We'll begin first by setting an intention. So planting a sankalpa, a deep spiritual intention, right in the center of your heart, 3 times silently. We'll begin chanting Om. Inhaling here. Om. And release your hands. And now we're going to come into really passive forward fold. So bend your knees a lot and just slowly kind of drape yourself over, easing down. So distance between the feet. And if you feel comfortable, you can grab opposite elbows, just kind of dangling the torso and rounding the back. Allow the back of the neck to be long and relaxed. Just letting gravity pull on your upper body, making some space between the vertebrae and the spine. And just coming forward as much as is comfortable. You can stay exactly as you are. If you want to try, you can grab your ankles with your hands and just gently start to push on the ankles. So you're making even more space in the back, in the spine. Almost like the way you push on the floor in an angry cat. Okay, take 3 breaths here, 3 deep breaths. And now you can support yourself with your hands on the floor and then widen the distance between your feet. And maybe pointing the toes further out than the heels will set you up. If you have tight hips, it'll set you up more easily. And then start to ease down into malasana, yogic squat. So if you have a block, we have a few options here. You can come into kind of a half squat if this is rather challenging for you. So maybe the heels are up and you're sinking your hips as much as you can. You can also sit on the block. And then maybe your heels can come to the floor. And you can work there. Sometimes once you're on the block, you can move it away and keep your heels down. That's after a bit of practice. One nice thing about this pose is if you start practicing it regularly, you really see some improvement pretty quickly. And it's so good for you. And this is a common way that people kind of sit in more Eastern cultures. And so their hips are naturally more open. So poses like lotus just come more readily. But because we're always sitting in chairs, this is kind of a foreign position to us. It feels rather intense rather than a comfortable way to sit. And take 3 deep breaths. And then you can put your hands down, lower yourself down. And we're gonna come onto your belly. So we're gonna do some meridian work on the spleen and stomach today. But first, we're gonna start with a pose that targets the kidneys. The kidneys support the governing of fluid in the body. So addressing the kidneys before the spleen and stomach will help to make those poses more effective. So coming into Sphinx, you're gonna have your forearms on the floor in front of you, your palms down, and keep your elbows just slightly in front of your shoulders. Now see if you can find rounding in the upper back. So draw your shoulder blades down, and it's as if you're sending your chest out through your shoulders. And if this is quite challenging, you can always take a blanket to kind of support under your ribs. If you feel like there's too much strain, there's a little engagement and effort here, but not too much. So if you're just getting used to this kind of position, a blanket in front of you would be helpful. Just feel the spine working here, the chest opening. You can even find a little bit of a pulling back with the hands towards you, and that'll help the chest come out through the shoulders. And focus on touching the baby toes to the floor. And this will bring the hips internally forward, rotating. And then as the hips rotate towards the front, you're making some space in the low back because your hips are moving away from your spine towards the front body as you touch your baby toes to the floor. And then there's more space in the low back. And take 3 deep breaths here. And as you come out, if you have a blanket in front of you, you can move it to the side and stack your hands. Rest your forehead on the back of your hands for a moment. And just fully release to the floor. You can rock your hips, sway your hips side to side. And then bring your hands under your shoulders. Just push yourself up. And then we're going to come to sit. So if your hips are pretty tight, take a blanket so it's nice and long. Then you're going to roll it into a tube. And then the middle of the tube is going to go behind your back, just at your seat. And then as we come into butterfly with the soles of the feet together, you're going to tuck the ends of the blanket under your thighs for support. It's almost like you have this little donut happening. You can see that, a kind of a U-shaped donut. So you're not sitting on the blanket in the back, it's just behind you, but the 2 ends of the blanket are tucked underneath your thighs. And then you can pull your heels in a bit towards you. And maybe sitting up is enough. And working on just this release in the inner thigh, groin area. So if you're not feeling that, then you may want to start to lean forward. That'll also help to release the low back. It's kind of a counter pose to the Sphinx pose that we just did. And the inner thigh area runs along your spleen line. So in the meridian system of traditional Chinese medicine. And that's what we work in when we're getting acupuncture. So when there's an imbalance or some kind of blockage in the meridian system, it can have different types of physical and emotional consequences or side effects. And so the spleen, it works closely with the stomach and digestion. So when there's an imbalance, you may have a problem with kind of too much worrying, maybe bloating or indigestion. Maybe you have an invitation to fold a bit deeper forward now that you've settled in. Try to come to a still, unmoving place. Adjusting only with full awareness and intention. And you can then see as your body becomes very still, your mind starts to usually move much quicker. So it may be telling you to try to move your body to distract it, or maybe you get an itch. See if you can resist itching the itch. That's a fun game to play. Now that I've said something about an itch, you probably have an itch. Okay, take 3 deep breaths. And slowly come up. And you can move the blanket away. And now bring your feet to the floor wide apart. Lean back on your hands and now just swing your knees back and forth, windshield wipers. Adding some movement, some yang, some blood flow. And then sitting back up, we're going to come into caterpillar. So this is just a forward fold Paschimottanasana. So it's nice here, especially if you have tight hamstrings. Put a blanket or pillow underneath your knees. Now separate your feet hips distance, just like we did when we were standing up. And let your feet go whichever way they want. So maybe they want to fan out, or maybe they go in, or maybe they stay straight up. It just really is dependent on the anatomy of your hips, which way your feet naturally go. So just let them do what they want. And take a deep breath. And then start to come forward. You're just draping yourself over your legs. Just remembering how we did that in the beginning. So find that first edge where you're feeling some kind of discomfort or noticing where the tension lies. But something you can work with. You don't want it to be too intense. You still want to be able to breathe naturally and find some relaxation. If this feels like a lot, you can also get a pillow or another rolled up blanket and put it up against your belly. Just pulling it in really close. And that gives some more support. And if you choose to put the blanket against your belly, that also helps to give a little massage to the inner organs. It's really important after this sequence, especially that you drink a lot of water. So we'll be working with the spleen meridian, which is really all about the distribution of nourishment and water. So it helps to maintain proper hydration. Drinking lots of water is important after practicing yin and also after having an acupuncture session. As if you can imagine the fascia, the sheath over the muscles and the organs, that also is connected with your interstitium, which is a layer of thin fluid, and that's the channel that the meridians run through, is this kind of watery, thin kind of sheath connected with the fascia. So you want to make sure you're really well hydrated so that energy can travel through. And take 3 more deep breaths. And very slowly ease yourself up. And move the prop out of the way. And then you can do that same kind of windshield wiper action again, or you can also just bend and straighten your knees. You could do both. Just what feels good to get the movement going again, kind of like a little reset after each pose. So if you don't have blocks, it's fine, but sometimes it's helpful to have blocks for this next one. I'm gonna come into kind of a lunging position. So first we'll just put the blocks at the front of the mat and just come up into downward dog. And now step your right foot to the outside of your right hand. So you take a few steps to get it up there if you need. And then you're gonna lower your left knee down. So if your left knee is sensitive, you could put a blanket under it, but the more towards the top of the knee you come, the less pressure will be on the kneecap. So it should be more comfortable. So if this is too much, you can just rest your forearms on top of your right thigh. So really you're getting into the front of the left hip here. In dragon, this is called in yin. You can also use the blocks inside of the leg. So your right foot is kind of out to the side a little bit. So you can also get into the right hip. Or you can also have your hands to the floor on the inside of your right foot. That's going deeper. Or if you're feeling really flexible now, maybe you can come down to the forearms, but keeping in mind again that you're going to be here for a couple of minutes. So coming down to forearms right away might be a bit much. You can also put forearms on the blocks as kind of like an in-between. So maybe you want to try a few different versions, see which one works, and then once you pick it, stay where you are and stay still. And just observe what happens. Kind of using your body and the sensations you're feeling as a meditative tool, like an anchoring of your awareness. So that as you see thoughts come up, you can let them go, watch them pass, but your awareness is anchored in the body sensations. And when your awareness is anchored in your body, then you're in the present moment. And your body's kind of like a tool for your soul to experience this physical world. Relax your jaw, relax your face. Take 3 deep breaths. And now very slowly, you can start to push up to your left knee and then bring your right knee back. And then we'll just pop up into downward dog for a moment. And pedal your heels, swing your hips side to side. And then we'll step the left foot forward to the outside of the left hand. Release down to the top of the right knee or put the blanket under the knee. And then start off in the position you took on the first side, but there is a chance that this side could be much tighter or more flexible. So, see how it feels. And if it feels all right, you can stay in that same variation, or you can adjust. If it's too much, you can, maybe come up on the blocks or come up to rest your arms on the top of your thigh. Or if you need to come down a little deeper. So finding the place that works and then stay there, stay still. And this is really a good pose for the stomach meridian. And this helps to digest food, but also digest emotions. So when you have some blockages in the stomach meridian, it can cause worrying and anxiety. And take 3 deep breaths. And now slowly come up, start to bend the right knee, and you can move the blocks out of the way. Then come on to hands and knees and press back into child's pose. So child's pose, you can have your knees wide apart and kind of put your belly between your legs, or you can have your knees together and resting your belly on top of your thighs. And if your hips don't sink all the way back to your heels, you can put a pillow or a blanket between your calves and your sitting bones, just for some support there. And your arms can stretch up overhead, kind of giving the shoulders a stretch, or if you like, you can release your arms alongside your body. If your head feels really far away from the floor, you can stack some blocks in front of you, put your forehead on the blocks. Relax your jaw and soften the area around your third eye. And take 3 deep breaths. So empty out the lungs completely when you exhale, and then fill them up completely with fresh new air on the inhale. So you get any stagnant breath out from the bottom of the lungs, kind of flushing yourself with fresh new air and oxygen. And slowly press into the earth with your hands to ease up. Excuse me. And then come forward to sit and then lie down on your back. And we'll do some spinal twists here. So bring your feet to the floor with your knees bent. And then you're going to lift your hips up just a little bit and then send them all the way as far to the right as you can, and then set them back down. And then let your knees drop over to the left. So you can stay in this kind of simple spinal twist. Extend your right arm out to the side. You can look up, or you can turn your head towards your right hand. And that'll help bring the twist up into your cervical spine, into your neck. But if you feel any neck tension by turning your head, then release your head back to center and just look straight up. If you feel like you need a deeper twist, what you can do is you can cross your legs. So cross your right leg on top of your left. And again, with the knees dropping to the left. If you want, you can also extend your left leg straight so that your right knee is coming even further down to the floor. So this is if you feel like the first variation isn't giving you enough of a stretch. Those are all just some options you can do. But keeping in mind that you want the right shoulder down towards the mat as your right hip is lifting up away from the mat. So shoulders and hips moving in opposite direction. It's nice to take some extra deep breaths in a spinal twist. Because if you can imagine filling your lungs with air, it's going to put some pressure on the spinal area. And this helps move the fluid, the spinal fluid. And when you're twisting, it is actually kind of wringing out your spine. So you're kind of wringing out the toxins, adding some movement, getting rid of stagnation. It's so good for your nervous system. And you can even visualize those things happening. Visualizing the spine kind of wringing out like a washcloth. And these exercises really do help your physical body do the things that you're envisioning. Actually deepens the experience. Your mind and your body are so deeply connected. That visualization paired with emotion, so powerful. And take 3 deep breaths here. And it's just nice to take some deep breaths at the end of the pose. It's a nice indicator that we're going to be moving and switching. And you can slowly draw your legs back to center, always coming out of the poses slowly. Draw your hips back to center. And then extend your legs straight just for a moment and feel the difference from right to left. So I feel like kind of nice, buttery, loose, relaxed feeling on the right side, but my left side still feeling kind of tight because we haven't done that side yet. It's just a nice practice to come back and feel the difference. And then when we come back at the end after doing both, then you'll notice how relaxed both sides are. Bring your feet to the floor again with your knees bent, and then very gently lift your hips up, send them all the way to the left and put them down, and drop your knees towards the right. I just got a nice crack in my back there. Okay, so whatever variation you did on the first side, I'll do that same one again. If you added on, the bottom leg can go straight, the right leg, or you can cross left leg over right, or just keep the knees stacked. Your left shoulder is moving towards the earth as your left hip is lifting up. Imagining you're wringing out the spine, resetting the nervous system. And while yin, it goes deeper than muscle, it goes into your connective tissue and your fascia, and that's so good for you. I think even more importantly, it's so beneficial to your nervous system, encouraging a sense of rest and repair, or rest and digest. And it's in this space that our body, our mind can come to a place of healing. We're so busy all the time. Sometimes we forget how to relax and just be still. And your body and your unconscious mind are so wise on their own. You don't need to do anything, and they know how to heal and repair on their own. But what they need is for you to just get out of the way, for you to just take that time to be still and relax. And sometimes doing nothing is the hardest thing to do. But like anything else, with practice, you can get better at that. Okay, take one more deep breath. And then bring your knees slowly back to center. Bring your hips back to center. And then one leg at a time, extend and straighten the leg and place it just exactly where you want it to be. And feel your hips release, feel your legs soften. Open your arms out to the side, tuck your shoulder blades under. And just close your eyes, take a few minutes of rest, giving your body this opportunity to absorb what you've done, integrating all the benefits. Shavasana may be the most important posture of all. And maybe even feel your stomach grumbling a little bit. That happens a lot in acupuncture too, when you're resetting these energetic channels, meridians. You actually start to feel the physical response. And you're welcome to rest here for a bit longer, as long as you like, or you can slowly start to come up. And we'll finish with the prayer for all beings.
and devote the efforts of our practice to benefit all sentient beings everywhere. Inhale for Om. Om. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha. Sarve santu niramayaha. Sarve bhadrani pashantu. Ma kaschit dukkha bhavet. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om, peace, peace, perfect peace. Thank you for practicing. Namaste.